What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise post-game show. Damian Lillard drops 60 points on the Utah Jazz for not the first time in his career, but the second time in his career. His career high 61 was also against this Utah Jazz team. And Damian Lillard absolutely goes off tonight. The Blazers drop 134 points on the scoreboard. Give up 124, but it's a double-digit win, which you'll take, especially when it's done with a masterful performance from Damian Lillard. We're going to talk everything Dame tonight. We're going to talk about how everyone was saying he was washed. We're going to talk about everything he did on the court tonight, as well as Nasir Little having some good minutes. Injuries to both Jusuf Nurkic and Josh Hart down the stretch. We'll see what the deal is with those. And this is going to be a fun post-game show. But first, thank you to BetOnline for sponsoring this post-game show. Once again, use that promo code BELIEVE for 50% rewards over on BetOnline. Parlays are fun. Live betting is fun. Spread picks is fun. NFL championship or conference championship games coming up this weekend for the NFL. Eagles versus our 49ers, Eric. And then you got Bengals Chiefs. You can get in on that action over on BetOnline. Anyway, let's jump into things, man. I am a little out of breath because Damian Lillard had me breathless tonight. Oh my goodness, Eric. At 32 years of age, still looking like prime Damian Lillard and going on a tear in the month of January.
Man, I thought that last three was going in for 63 too. That would have been so awesome. That was kind of, I think Chauncey apologized to Will Hardy after the game, but it looked like Dame didn't even want the ball the last few possessions, and he finally got it. Let that three fly. That would have been sweet, but still awesome performance. And we needed him to have a big game. And I don't feel like he really. I mean, he obviously had to work really hard for it, but I still don't feel like he was just having to necessarily carry the team. He was just getting good shots within the flow of the offense.
Yeah, and he just looked fresh tonight, man. His burst off the dribble was...
He's trying to throw down more often, too.
He's dunking more. He looks fresh. He had a stretch where he struggled, early in the year, after Christmas, kind of around that time, and he didn't seem to have as much burst off the dribble. But also his three-point shot wasn't going in. It wasn't going in, so defenders weren't having to play out on him as much. Tonight, he was basically in one of those zones where he was shooting so well from three that it was absolutely impossible to guard him. Because if you get out and take away his three, you're going to have to guard him 30 feet beyond the hoop. And he is just obviously so phenomenal off the dribble, shooting off the dribble, that he keeps you on your toes. He had so much burst that it was basically either a layup for him or it was a three-point shot. And he was efficient on both. 21 for 29 after missing that last three. Was 21 for 28. I love this performance because he didn't do it being a free throw merchant. He didn't have 25 free throws, 26 free throws like James Harden has had in the past in some big performances. He had 10 free throws tonight. Still a healthy amount of trips to the charity stripe, but the efficiency was phenomenal. 21 for 29 is, I don't know when the last time I saw a more efficient 60-point game where somebody made that many shots from the field on that high of a percentage.
It was the most efficient 60-point game of all time.
Well, there you go. We've never seen it.
Based on effective field goal percentage, I think it was 89% or something. Something unreal like that, yeah. But yeah, it's officially the most efficient 60-point game ever.
Yeah, phenomenal game from him. He ended up being 9 for 15 from 3. He was 12 for 14 inside the arc. And he was already, I think, having his most efficient year from 2. He's been better finishing around the rim. Also, just scoring up in the NBA in general. Players are shooting even better, so you have more space. But he has his burst. I hope that this is the Dame we continue to see for years to come, man. Because people thought earlier in the season that he was showing signs of slowing down. People at one point or another were saying he's washed. See, he's 32. He lost a step. I don't remember the last time he dunked. This and that. And he's answered that criticism with a huge month of January. He has to be averaging close to 40 points per game in the entire month. He's been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and for the season, he's up over 30 points a game now, so...
Highest scoring average of any season ever. Might be his most efficient after this game, because obviously his efficiency is going to take a huge jump as well. Dame is as good as he's ever been, man. He was also doing a lot of things that I like defensively in this game. Didn't make a ton of mistakes defensively. I think he had... let me look at the steal count here for him. Had 3 steals in this game. There was multiple possessions where I thought he did a good job fighting through screens. One, he drew an illegal screen on. An illegal screen that he wouldn't have gotten an illegal screen called on Utah had he not fought through the screen hard. He was giving it on both ends of the floor today. This wasn't just an offensive game for him. He had a solid defensive game. Sure, you can probably point to some buckets where maybe he didn't play the best defense whatsoever, but when a dude is giving you 60 points, anything you get on the defensive end is gravy. And I thought there was multiple possessions where he had a solid defensive trip on top of that. You could make the case that this is Damian Lillard's best game of his life.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I mean, he had a couple of bad closeouts, but everyone on our team does that. But that one play he had where I think it was Walker Kessler was receiving a pass like near the hoop coming right down the middle. Looked like he was going to be wide open, and Dame had a great rotation to right on the turn, strip the ball from him when that probably should have been an easy 2 for them on a nice play design. So just good awareness off ball this game as well.
Yeah, so phenomenal game from Dame. And with this win, do you realize how many or how few games back the Blazers are of home court advantage right now?
I know.
Eric, they're 2.5 games out of home court advantage right now.
I know. I had a post yesterday. If we just didn't blow the 25-point lead against the Lakers and the 19-point second half lead against the Clippers without Kawhi and PG, we would have been in 5th place going into this game. So like that's how close it is to from us feeling like everything is like the sky is falling and everything sucks to, man, we're like right in the thick of things with some really good teams.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing. This season can still end up being a good one. And the Blazers have won 2 in a row now. Yes, it's just 2 games. They beat Dallas twice in a row and then had 2 awful losses after that. So I am not making any projections, Eric.
Let's keep the same attitude we had last game with one at a time.
I'm not reading into this in terms of like, there's a difference between looking at the standings picture as it is right now and saying, wow, we're close, and like, oh, well, this is a turnaround, this is a change. Right? Because the last 2 games we've given up 124 and 127 points. Now, Utah's a really good offensive team, and they're not a good defensive team, and obviously that showed tonight with this final score. But, this team is not all the way there yet. Still some struggles, still some moves to be made as we head up to the trade deadline. But there was one positive from this game that was different than the past. And we've seen in games where the Blazers are over-reliant on Dame, or even games where they're not over-reliant on Dame, but just it's a close game down the stretch, we've seen this team choke so many games and be terrible in the fourth quarters offensively because defenses have started trapping Dame, and they ratchet up the pressure, and we get sloppy and turn the ball over like crazy. It looked like it was headed that way in the fourth quarter. The Jazz cut it to 7 or 9 points there with about 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Blazers had like 3 terrible turnovers in a row, culminating with Dame just throwing the ball out of bounds in the backcourt, trying to pass it to Anthony Simons. They got super sloppy.
It also lined up with the other team starting to double team and pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like in the past, we've responded so badly to that we're terrible for the last 5, 6, 7 minutes of games. And I was worried that this game was going to go that direction because we got super sloppy there. Mm-hmm. But Chauncey Billups called a quick timeout.
Yep.
And this team responded well out of that timeout. Yeah. And it wasn't just Dame going off. Like Anthony Simons, after struggling the entire game, had like 3 straight good offensive possessions. 1 in transition, found Jeremy Grant for a dunk. 1 drove baseline, got a dunk of his own. And basically it was a situation where when Damian Lillard's getting all that attention, he was being doubled, face guarded, trapped, everything. They were throwing everything at him defensively. That's where it's nice to have that second guy, that quote-unquote redundant guy. It's nice to have somebody of Anthony Simons' offensive caliber to be able to create plays, knock down shots, etc. And after struggling all game, you still have confidence in him coming through in those situations. He just has to step up when the team needs him. And he did that. He did that. 3 straight possessions, calmed the team down. In the past, Anthony Simons has struggled in these scenarios. I feel like in fourth quarters when the pressure gets ratcheted up and Dame's getting taken out of the game, he hasn't taken over as well as he needs to, or hasn't played as consistent offensively as he needs to. In this game, where they were doing whatever they could to take Dame out of it, and the Blazers were getting sloppy, 1, great timeout call by Chauncey Billups. 2, Anthony Simons stepped up in that moment and staved off this run. So that's something that we haven't seen in fourth quarters, which has culminated in all our collapses and tough, close losses where we're terrible offensively down the stretch. I thought the Blazers, in general, answered that today, and that's the biggest positive outside of Dame that you can take away from this game, in my opinion.
Well, believe it or not, Anthony Simons, this was like a week ago that I saw this, but I forget if it was just clutch minutes or fourth quarter minutes, but he was like 3rd in the NBA in 3-pointers and in the clutch or something like that. So like it doesn't seem like that at all, but he has actually sneakily been okay in those positions.
Yeah,
but,
it's mostly his playmaking, his reads, his decisions, like
but,
just being that veteran, and he's still learning. He's still young, so that's something he'll learn. But outside of the 3-point shooter, I feel like in fourth quarters he's struggled because the physicality kind of makes him struggle more on drives. He doesn't get to the line a ton, even against physicality, and then the decision making.
Yeah, but this is why, there was a game, I forget which game it was, might have been last game or the game before, where he didn't have any rebounds. He had 2 assists. Obviously, he's had turnover problems. And people were saying, see, he doesn't do anything if he's not hitting shots. And my counter to that is always go ahead and leave him open then if you want to.
Yeah.
Because I fully believe if he didn't have defensive attention because they think he sucks, like some people think he sucks, that he would go crazy. And he's only struggling because he's adjusting to having to have that attention. But in games like tonight, when the defense has to completely sell out to stop Dame, and they can't even do that, this is why you need another player like Anthony, because you still can't not give him attention on defense. And I thought, he was not hitting his threes tonight, so that could have been something that we blew this game open, and it wasn't even a thing where Dame even had to come back in after scoring 50 through 3 quarters. But Ant started driving to the basket, and he wasn't necessarily driving to score unless he had a lane. And he was I thought this was his best game of the season in terms of getting into the paint and passing as well, playmaking. And if we get that kind of development from Ant where he's starting to hit the cutters in the dunker spot or kicking out to open 3-point shooters, combined with something we'll talk about in a minute, maybe a little better spacing in lineups with Anthony and Dame in there, I think this team is going to hit another gear. And quietly, Tori, they're up to 7th in defensive rating in the NBA, right? Or offensive rating in the NBA,
yeah.
Sorry. So
we're not so quietly, because this is a pretty loud one.
Well, the last 2 games aside, it feels like they've been struggling on offense all season, and all those fourth quarter collapses, all those 5-minute periods of not scoring, all the bad starts to both the first half and the third quarter. We're still 7th, horrible bench play. Despite all of that, they're still 7th, and they're only a couple of points per 100 possession, not 0.2 points per 100 possessions away from being 5th in offense right now. So, despite people struggling mightily, and no one can make a basket, and Grant all of a sudden can't hit a three, and all this stuff. But like, they're figuring it out, I think, on offense at least, and it's very encouraging how many points they've been putting up lately.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny because in regards to Ant, people before the season a lot of people said that Josh Hart was a much better fit. But one of my biggest counters against that was late in games when the pressure's high and teams are doing whatever they can to take Dame out of it. You need that guy like Anthony Simons to come through and make plays. The biggest critique of Josh Hart is he's not willing to shoot the three ball. I mean, imagine if you had him out there instead, where Dame gets trapped and he kicks to a Josh Hart who isn't really willing to shoot threes and doesn't shoot threes at a high clip. It isn't that type of creator. That's not a better fit. There's always been criticism of the Blazers backcourt with Dame and CJ about how they're too redundant. They do the same thing, this and that, right? But you need multiple guys that can create shots and score at a high level. And Ant being that sort of guy, yes, he's like Dame in that regard, but that's not a bad thing. Because you need that sort of threat to be able to relieve pressure, to be able to make those plays when defenses are taking Dame out of the game and double teaming him and whatnot. And Dame can still get his against it. I'm not saying that, he can't score or whatever, but it just makes it easier on him and it makes it easier on the team as a whole where it's not Dame having to hit a bunch of double team contested threes and all this insane stuff. The Blazers got quality shots when Dame got trapped, and that's what should happen. You should be able to beat the trap and get really good looks for other guys on this team. And Ant stepping up down the stretch was huge with that after struggling basically the entire game.
Did you hear Dame's post-game press conference?
I kind of vaguely listened to it.
He said he mansplained what drop coverage is, but so they asked it, or Brooke asked him like what got him going or like how he got in the zone tonight, and he said, well, Utah came out in drop coverage, which is where when we set a screen, like they drop the big and he's not out contesting those 3-point shots, so I was getting open looks, and I'm just like, why would you ever play drop against Dame? That's so dumb. Like I know their whole game plan is to get Kessler, like they don't want him away from the hoop, they want him always near the rim. They did the same thing with Gobert, but
Dame cooked Gobert too numerous times.
Yeah, but that was terrible game plan from them to start out that way. If they would have started pressuring him from the beginning and taken away those threes, who knows if he gets going tonight. And if we struggle with Ant struggling to hit a three, because we started out, I think we were 3 of 12 or something at one point in the first half from three, and like 1 of 9, I think, after the first quarter or something like that. So we were not doing well against it, but it was only a matter of time for someone like Dame to get going.
Yeah, we'll thank donos in a sec. Thank you to the 4 of you that have donated. We'll read them off in a second. But Eric, as I think back, Dame has 4 career 60-point games, third all-time, by the way, behind Kobe, who had 6, and then Wilt Chamberlain, who had 32, because of course. Yeah. But in 3 of those games, at least 3 of those games, I don't remember about the time he dropped 60 on the Nets and we lost, but he's dropped 61 against the Jazz. He dropped 60 in the bubble against the Mavs, and then he dropped 60 tonight against the Jazz. In those 3 games, defenses ran drop on him basically the entire game. That 61 against Utah, I was at that game. They dropped, and he had a lot of drives just to the rim where he was just weaving through that space. Against Utah, or against Dallas in the bubble, remember they had Porzingis, who just is not quick enough to defend out in space, and they were dropping him, and then they were trying to get him to come up, but he was so slow that it was either drop him and Dame gets a 3, or he comes up and Dame gets to the rim. It was basically the same exact thing in this game as well. You cannot get away with running drop on this dude when he has it going for the entire game. Even when he doesn't have it going, he's coming off those screens with so much confidence, and based on that post-game press conference, he knew what shots he was going to be able to get. He knew what reads he was going to make the entire game. That's why I was always against the defensive scheme where it was drop no matter who you played against the entire game. right? And it's just crazy to think back to, I mean, I don't want to make this about any particular coach, but it's just crazy thinking back to game 1 of the 2019 Western Conference Finals, and we did that against Steph Curry for an entire game, right? So, don't run drop against Dame, or you're asking for him to put 60 points on your head.
Mm-hmm. Well, Torrey, outside of the 4 60-point games, his next high is 59, also against Utah.
Yeah. Because Utah always plays drop, and he knows going into games that they're going to play drop. Yeah. Because they play as much. In the past 5, 6, 7 years, whatever, they play more drop or as much drop as anybody else in the league.
Yeah, and it's like the 3rd or 4th game in a row where Dame's hit a deep 3 too, so that's encouraging. I was almost to the point where I wanted him to stop shooting those for a while, but he's hitting the deep ones. He had one from the McDelivery logo tonight, which was cool. But the real difference in this game, I thought, was his when he just decided he was going to get to the hoop every time, and he had some really nice finishes. And he was kind of fooling them, thinking he was going to pull up for 3, and then getting them to stand up in their stance, and then just blowing by him. And he blew by several good defenders. He isolated Colin Sexton on the baseline and just blew right by him. He blew by Jared Vanderbilt, who's a good perimeter defender, several times. And they had no idea how to stop him in this game.
Yep, absolutely. So Dame, 60 points. Jeremy Grant had 19 points. 0 for 2 from 3. 9 for 15 from the field, though. His shot has been hit or miss the past month to a month and a half after starting the season on fire. Jeremy Grant, when he got going downhill, was phenomenal this game. And I had a tweet about, something. I compared, some of his mid-range shots to Melo, right? I said, tired of Jeremy Grant playing like Melo, settling for all this mid-range crap and playing crap defense, because he had some bad defensive possessions in the first half, in my opinion, mostly getting through screens, but then also, I don't even remember what, but I remember that there was a couple, off-ball mistakes he made. But basically, my whole thing with Grant is he is so good going downhill at the rim. He gets to the free throw line and finishes at a very high rate when he's just aggressive and attacks guys downhill. I get so frustrated when he settles for some of his mid-range stuff early in the clock because he's so good driving downhill. I know he can knock down mid-range jumpers, and I know occasionally he can get hot on them. If he's hot on them and has made a couple, okay, fine, go ahead. But the main reason I get frustrated with all the mid-range shots that he shoots is because he's so good going downhill. Because he's so good turning the corner. He's unstoppable. He's, you're not going to consistently stop him if he's aggressive. And for some reason, at times, he elects to just settle for this mid-range stuff. And it's like, dude, just attack. You're an athletic freak, super long, can finish, can contort, and finish layups. Remember earlier in the season, he was getting to the line 10 times a game, right? And I feel like his free throw rate has dropped off because he hasn't been as aggressive attacking the rim. He shot 2 free throws tonight. He played 42 minutes, shot 2 free throws. He had 28 against the Knicks, and it wasn't like he was getting a bunch of BS foul calls or foul baiting or that sort of thing. He was just playing super aggressive. So I think, Jeremy's been fine lately. I just want him to attack because he's so good at it.
To be fair, some of those games were without Dame, where he was more of our primary offensive player. But I think, I hope, because we could all see this, but on those Dame and Ant drives, when he's hanging out about 8 feet away from the basket on the baseline, and he gets that little dump off pass, he can get to the rim in 1 second once he catches that. So you don't even have to lob it to him. He's so quick once he catches the ball getting there that I think that's something they could really exploit. I know he's still shooting above 40% from 3 this season, so you do want him to space the floor sometimes. But especially if Nurk's out there setting a pick and you're running pick and roll, so Nurk's not in the paint yet, or he pops out and is staying around the 3-point line, I really want Grant to cut on those, and I think we can really get whatever shot, because if his guy helps, that's an easy dump off pass, And if they don't help, Dame and Ant can get to the rim now, and both of them are finishing well. So I really like using him more around the basket rather than just a 3-point shooter.
Yep, absolutely. By the way, earlier I said Dame had 61 in the past against Utah. That was that 59-point game you mentioned. I was mistaken thinking it was 61 because at the time it was a career high. It was 59. I was at that game. But he had 61 against Golden State. That's when he hit the game winner.
Yeah.
So they weren't playing drop on him. But that's at least 3 of the 5 games played drop against him. I just wanted to correct that because I was wrong. Had Laser correct it in chat. He said... 61 in wins against the Warriors and the Mavs, and then 60 against the Nets in a loss. I remember that game.
Yeah,
I remember that post game show. That was a while ago. We were mad. 60 in a loss. Thankfully, this game didn't turn into that after it looked like it might be close with 7 minutes left in the fourth. Let me thank some donuts. Shout Chris S. to what's.
If that's just pounds.
Is that a pound? All right, 2 pounds.
I don't know.
We're guessing. Shout out Chris S. for the 2-pound donation. Says, Dame is washed, guys. Get over it. Yeah, people, when Dame was in a slump and I was saying you guys are overreacting to a slump, you guys are being too hard on him over a shooting slump, I had so many people say, you'll never criticize Dame even when he's obviously the problem and blah, 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 blah. He's averaging over 30 points per game right now. People said he was washed. People said so much crap, Eric. The apology better be louder than the disrespect was.
I don't keep disrespecting him. I'm fine with that.
If it motivates him, sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Because he always likes having that chip on his shoulder.
I just hope he gets promoted in the All-Star game. I mean, it would be nice to have the Dame, FU revenge tour for not making it, but...
I think at this point, there's no way he doesn't make it. I know he's missed a few games, but every star has missed some games.
Mm-hmm.
So he's averaging 30 a game. How do you keep him out?
I don't know.
What's Gilgeous-Alexander averaging right now? Is he still above 30? He's right at 30 as well. But Dame's averaging almost 8 assists or 7.5 assists right now. He's averaging more assists than SGA. I think he's been just as efficient. So I mean, you got to put Dame in it. I don't see how Dame doesn't end up being an all-star. That would be the biggest snub of all time. A guy averaging 30 for a team that's 2.5 games out of home court advantage. That's the thing, Eric, with all-star voting in the West. I don't think you can base it much off team success because every team is so close.
Yeah.
It's just who's been the best players.
As true as that is, it does suck that we... when you start hot and then you struggle, you're seen as more of a pretender than if, we talked about earlier in the season, if it happened the opposite way where we started off strong, but by now we're climbing up the standings and in 5th after being 12th most of the season while it's fresh in people's mind. I do think it will have some effect, even though it probably shouldn't. But, I mean, if we were up in 4th or 5th right now, I think it would be an absolute lock.
We might be 4th or 5th by the time they vote.
Well, the starters are being announced tomorrow.
Yeah, he's not going to be a starter. He never has been.
I think it's sometime next week that the reserves are announced. And I mean, I don't know when the voting is probably by Sunday then for the coaches and the players.
Is it really that far after? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know the timeline of this sort of stuff.
I think it's all been done because that's part of the starter vote now, so we're all had to been done by now, I think. I don't know.
I mean, if he misses it, I'm gonna be pissed off.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you put Booker in it, because that was one of the guys that's he's gonna make it, people just assume he's gonna make it. His stats on the season are worse than Dame, and he's missed more games than Dame, and his team is, I mean, there's a game ahead of the Blazers, the Suns are, a game and a half. I don't know how you put Booker in ahead of him. And that's no disrespect to Booker. He's a great player. He's just missed a ton of games.
Mm-hmm.
So It's going to be interesting to see because obviously you have a ton of talent and like some insane statistical seasons this year. SGA is one of them. But, yeah. It's going to be interesting to see, man. Anyway, let me think off the rest of the donos. Shout out Michael V with his... he does this every time we win with the $5 dono. Says, had to drop the Wono and dip out, but my oh my, that man Wame is a bad, bad man. Thank you, Michael V, for the $5 dono. Appreciate it. Appreciate you always donating in the wins. Now we just need the Jordan Baker GG hippopotamus.
We haven't seen that.
I know. And if he doesn't bring it back for a Dame 60 piece, I'm going to be sad. Anyway, thank you, Michael. Shout out Brian Tadovich, $5 donut. Says, first game in 4 years. Cool to see Dame go off. Liked how Nas and Eubanks got more playing time. Time to trade Nurk. You were doing so well with that donation, Brian. I'm glad you enjoyed going to the game. And Nas and Eubanks both played well. This is Eubanks' third straight good game in a row. I'll talk about him more a little bit later, but I've been happier with him.
Really good.
Yeah. And I'll talk about why later on in the stream, why I've been happier with him, what I think he's doing better. But trading Nurkic is not going to end up making this team better. We'll talk about Nurk in a second, too, because he was getting a lot of criticism. But, yeah, I don't want to talk about it yet. I want to thank these donos, but we can jump into Nurkic next if you want to.
Well, I just want to say in regards to trading won't make it better. Like, the only thing I think is, once again, if you need his salary to bring in a star making like 30 to 40 million or something, then sure. Like, yeah, if you have to include Nurk to make salaries work, you don't not pull the trigger on that. But like,
basically, I mean it like trading Nurk for the sake of trading Nurk is not going to make the team better. Mm-hmm. If that trade is the sake of trading for a star. So that's how I should word it. Trading Nurk just to get rid of him, just to get him off the team, is not going to make the team better. Anyway, What's Not says, how in the hell can you say trading Nurk won't make the team better if you don't know who they get back? Seriously. Because there's a lot of teams, a lot of the good teams have centers entrenched. Nurkic isn't going to have a ton of value. Like, people say he's trash, but then expect something back for him. Trading Nurkic just to trade Nurkic, what are you going to get? In order to get any center that's better than him, you have to give up additional assets, but DeAndre Ayton is inconsistent too. Miles Turner is inconsistent too and makes us maybe the worst rebounding starting lineup in the league, especially if you don't keep starting Josh Hart. Like, that's the thing is, any center upgrade doesn't necessarily fix any of the issues we've had, could create more issues, and we have to give up assets to do it. So trading Nurkic for the sake of trading Nurkic just doesn't make sense. So, yeah, obviously if you could swap him for Joel Embiid or something, you'd do it in a heartbeat. But anything realistic for Nurkic doesn't really make sense. Shout out to... Or do you want to touch upon that before I go to the next one?
Just real quick, I think the only way it could work out to be that way is if you get someone without giving up Nurk, but he ends up being better than Nurk, like kind of like the Nurkic trade for Plumlee kind of thing, you know? So like if you take a chance on someone and they end up being better than Nurk, and you have Nurk still as like the backup, but like there's not many centers that you could just point to right now and say we could get him for Nurkic without giving up much else, and they'd for sure be better in that role. And so I think we're kind of stuck at least this season, especially given he's in the first year of his contract and all that. So to most teams, like let's say the Pacers did want to trade us Miles Turner, we're going to have to pay extra for him because they don't necessarily want Nurk, and that Nurk doesn't make sense for their rebuild. So you either have to find another team, or you have to give them extra because they don't want us 4 years or whatever. So that's what Torrey was talking about. And so I'd much rather find a center that's maybe unheralded like Nurk was, or that has an issue with like never going to play because of who's in front of him, and maybe you let your scouts find that guy. I mean, Eubanks has been fine the last 3 games, so like I don't even know if that's going to be like a huge thing they address at the trade deadline.
Yeah. Shouts to Damani Ikwe with a $5 dono says Ant plays best when he doesn't settle for threes and consistently brushes the screener's shoulder to get downhill. I wish Ant would play downhill a little bit more often, but you can't knock his 3-point shooting when he shoots 10 a game and makes 38% of them. Like, his 3-point shooting is good. I just think he could be maybe a little bit more picky with his 3-point shooting and look to attack more. So I don't know if we agree in that regard, but that's basically what I would say is some of the tough ones he shoots that is earlier in the clock than like 4 or 5 seconds left, he needs to try and drive downhill because he can get a shot off at any time. So I would love to see him be a little bit more aggressive in certain positions instead of settling. But, you want him getting him up if he's making 38% of them, especially because he does a good enough job hitting some tough ones. It's kind of the whole thing with Dame in the past is like how much you want him shooting threes, how much you want him attacking, because he can get hot and hit a bunch of tough, difficult threes. It's just sort of finding that fine line. So I think Simons will figure that out a little bit more as he gets more experienced.
Yeah, there's 2 things for me with Anthony. One is when he's playing with the starters, he's obviously not involved in the pick and roll as much. So his chances to get downhill are either attacking a closeout or beating his man off the dribble. And that's a lot harder to do in the NBA than just going downhill off a screen, like you said, when you brush off the shoulder of the screener. So I think having some of his time playing with not quite as good of a screen setter in Eubanks does make it a little tougher to get downhill as easily as Dame does. But you also have to remember that he's so young, and he hasn't had that role of being a primary ball handler since last season when Chauncey came in and kind of forced him to be more of that type of player than a catch and shoot player. So he's still learning the game too and how to get downhill and stuff. But that's why, like, I always find it funny when people say like, this guy, like, he's CJ 2.0. He can't do this. He can't do that. But like, just the improvement he's made on some of this stuff from heading into last season until now is like great. And even his defense going from one of the worst rated defenders in the league his first 3 seasons to, making the jump to, it's still negative, but like, not as negative, closer to neutral than complete garbage. So like it's still a jump. Whether it's good enough or not is of course not true. It's not, he's not good enough defensively or whatever, but he can still improve on that end. He needs to be better in every facet of the game. It's not like he's a complete player yet. So I do have faith that he'll improve all those things.
Yeah, as far as running pick and rolls, I agree. He plays very square to ball screens, which gives the defender more of a gap in order to get through that screen, and doesn't give him as much of an edge in terms of trying to get downhill. And it's a little easier for him to pull up off the screen because he's already kind of playing square. But that's the problem, is he sets his pick and rolls up in a way to get threes, but not turn the corner and get downhill. And that's something that he has to figure out from Dame, because Dame does a good job of running his guys off screens and then making a decision whether to pull or get downhill, where Ant, I feel like most of the time, is playing pick and rolls looking for that 3-point shot. So that's something for Ant to learn. But at 23, that's the type of stuff you can have confidence that he'll learn at some point over his career. That is something that's definitely fixable. Thank you, Damani, for the $5 dono. And then we will... let's just run through them. Jason Holly, $2 dono, says, Dame's my boy. Hugs, big man. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, Dame, phenomenal. Shout out Dro with the $2 drono, says, play with pace when Dame gets hot. Can't trap us. Absolutely, yeah. That is where... I know a lot of people want to start Nasir Little over Josh Hart, but that's where we'd miss having Josh Hart, is just that third ball handler on the court.
They were
that can
getting out
pass.
running with Nas though too.
Yeah. You just don't.
They were playing fast for a while.
Yeah, they were playing fast, but like Josh Hart's better handling the ball. He pushes more in transition with the ball, and he's a better passer than Nas. So that is something that would be missed, I think, is because Josh Hart, phenomenal rebounder. A lot of it is grab and go, and he gets Dame, Ant, and Jeremy Grant good shots out of transition off his own rebounds. So, maybe Nas could develop into that guy, but Josh Hart, that's one of his biggest strengths in the starting lineup that actually makes sense in the starting lineup. I love the way Josh Hart gets this starting lineup playing at a faster pace. Hopefully, if Nas is the starter at some point, hopefully he can do some of the same.
Yeah. Can we get back to that in a second? I wanna go off a comment back to Ant for a second.
Go ahead.
Brian Stringer says CJ didn't take 5 seasons to get here. Ant taken forever, and he's getting cooked. I just want to point out that when CJ McCollum took over the starting job in his 3rd season after he traded everyone, he was 24 years old, a full year older than Anthony Simons is right now. So it's not a case of like how many seasons it takes to get there. CJ came in as a person who played multiple years in college, had the experience of playing in like NCAA tournament and leading his team, being the lead guard. Anthony didn't have anything because he didn't go to college and he chose to go to IMG Academy for his gap year in between the NBA and high school. So and then his first 3 seasons, much like the first 2 from CJ, most of that from CJ was injury, I guess. Who knows how much he would have played had he not been hurt most of those years. But Anthony didn't have a chance of coming in and just being the clear-cut starter. And the minute he did last year, he immediately showed what he could do. And like I said, it's only been about a little over a year now since he has been in that role. Without the experience that CJ or Dame had at that point. Dame was this age when he came in as well, or when he started doing this kind of stuff. So I don't really buy that that's the reason why that he's taking forever. It's just this is the progression of someone who's young and doesn't have a lot of experience, and I think we're going to see that same thing from Sharpe. He's going to show flashes and stuff, but he's not going to be a complete player for the next year or two,
what's funny is I see a lot of people who want to trade Simon saying Sharpe's already a better defender than him, and I don't understand how that's the case. Sharpe is, at this point, still terrible defensively, unfortunately, and it's like, all these people saying he's better defensively. If we traded Simons and started Sharpe at the 2 guard, after about a year, they'd be complaining about how terrible he is defensively, is my gut feeling. Because that was my gut feeling when people were saying to trade Ant so that we could start... Or no, that was my gut feeling when people were saying to trade CJ so that we could start Ant, is all the stuff said about CJ would then apply to Ant, even if Ant was a little different. Ant would automatically get branded as CJ 2.0. I feel like there's a chance that Sharpe gets branded as CJ 3.0 at some point in the future, or Ant 2.0. Or too redundant, you know what I mean? But the thing is he's such an athlete, maybe people will give him more of a break. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe his learning curve is better than Anthony. I mean, that's certainly possible. But as of right now, almost every metric has him at least in the bottom 5 of worst defenders in the NBA.
Yeah,
so
every metric.
Yeah.
Somebody says, why is Sharpe worse defensively? He's much weaker at the point of attack. Guys just go through him. He opens up the door. He then also doesn't give that final bit of effort to contest shots that he lets get to the rim like Ant does. Ant gets beaten to the rim. He'll still go up and make the shot difficult. Sharpe will just kind of put his hands down and watch the guy go up in front of him and just won't even get a hand up, won't even try and make it tough. Yeah, and I think Ant's better off ball, better positioning. Sharpe has potential defensively. I think Sharpe could be a solid defender, but I feel like people
just because he's bigger, people assume he's a better defender than Ant. But any analytic disagrees with that, and I don't know, man. I don't think he passed the eye test either. I didn't realize my hair was so messed up. Okay, I'll put back on the hat.
Yeah.
Well, I have this preview on YouTube, this preview window, and for some reason it ends up like 20 minutes behind. So I was looking at myself wearing a hat, being like, okay, I look fine. Whoops.
Sharpe just doesn't. I mean, you can tell he's inexperienced. I don't necessarily think it's a case where he is always going to be lost on that end, but he definitely, if you watch him off ball, does get lost at times. And then on ball, he does this thing that drives me crazy. Like, even if the guy gets somewhat of an angle on him, he'll stick with the guy, and then the guy will go to shoot, and he just like doesn't contest the shot and like doesn't finish the defensive possession. And it's happened like numerous times this season, and that's got to be driving the coaching staff crazy as well. But like, that's something that's easily correctable with coaching and film study and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm not worried about him long term, but I just don't understand why we have to push something to happen right now when the kid is not ready for a full-time starting role. I think what we're doing right now is fine, because like we have time to bring him along slowly and be good. Like, we don't have to like make it to where like we have to play him like 30 minutes a game or whatever. I just don't understand.
Yep. Let's get through the final couple of dono shot. Michelle Wadler with a $5 dono says, just woke up and saw that Dame had 60 tonight. Hard to see the games living in New York City. I missed a great performance. Yes, you did. You missed a Dame masterclass. Thank you for the $5 donation. The highlights will hopefully do it some justice, though, because Dame was amazing tonight. Absolutely dominant. 50 points after 3 quarters was just, it was just beautiful. I never take a Dame performance for granted like this, because obviously he's not going to be able to play at this level for forever. And given the questions with his injury last year, and then some of his struggles this year where everybody's saying he's washed, he'll never be the same again, this and that, I will always take this type of performance for granted. And this is as good of a game as I think he's ever had in his entire career. So it was phenomenal. Thank you for the $5 dono, Michelle. Shout out Brian Tadovich, $2 dono, says, Nasir spreads the floor, Hart does not. Hart should spread the floor. His shooting shouldn't be as bad as it is. But yeah, Nasir is obviously the better floor spreader. If you started Nasir over Hart, that's something that would be a positive. Now, there are some, potential negatives. I think Hart is better rebounding the ball, and we kind of need that with Jeremy Grant being a subpar rebounder, and then Hart is better at handling the ball in transition, passing, and pushing the pace. Nas, I think, can be the better on-ball defender if he just becomes a little bit more consistent and is a better shooter at this point. So that's the thing, is whichever one you start, there will be some positives, there will be some negatives. Also, my ring light just fell, so I'll have to put that back up. But yeah, thank you, Brian, for the $2 dono.
Yeah, that's definitely something we'll get into it later on. I think that deserves a bit of more time later on as we get caught up. There's another dono, that's why.
I know there is. Let me just put that back up.
While you're doing that, so Damani had a good comment about Sharpe had a great chase down block tonight. But that was a goaltend, I think, by the way. But well, whether it's a goaltend or not. So this is something that there needs to be a distinguishable difference between like an athletic, like non-thinking play. Like a chase down block is great, like it's awesome, but it's not like you're in a defensive position like in a team setting and you have to make the right read and you're coming from across the court to someone that's not your guy to block a shot, which he has done at times as well. But like those kind of plays are just like using your athleticism, and it's all like just not thinking like, oh, they're a fast break, I have to chase this down, and then the shot goes up in front of you and you have the ability to go get it. Like those are, once again, they're great. I'm not saying they're not important, but like to me that shows that he has potential on the defensive end. But I'm more concerned in like the half court setting. And it might not be as flashy, but this is 2 straight games where Ant has jumped a pass and stolen the ball and created a fast break opportunity by getting in the passing lanes on a clean steal. So that's something that is good as well. But I mean, in order for this team to hit its maximum ceiling, I think you need both of them to become like positive defenders. And if that happens, man, look out, because the ceiling for both of them offensively is still really high.
Yeah. I mean, that play shows that Sharpe has athleticism. There's, a lot more to it that he has to figure out. But that was a fun play, even though I think it was a goaltend that we might have gotten away with. But if anything, that would just be justice for what happened in Utah a couple years ago. If you know, you know. Shout out 720 Cinema with the $5 donut. Says Damian will definitely hit the 3,000 threes mark and become the second all-time leader in three-pointers, assuming he's healthy for 5 more seasons. Do the math. I'm going to assume that you did the math for us, 720 Cinema. Thank you for the $5 dono.
We kind of tried to do the math last game, like, on the fly, and we thought, like, it was certainly possible to get to second, but there's still active players around there, too, that like Clay and Harden that definitely will be around the 3,000 mark as well, so it's hard to know how many more threes they're going to hit, but congrats to Dame on moving into 6th all-time three-pointers tonight. Awesome.
Yep, thank you, 720 Cinema.
Mm-hmm. Thank you to everyone who donated. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's talk Yusuf Nurkic. Nurkic was a hot topic tonight, Eric. And he had a terrible first, 4.5 minutes. Okay? After that, I think he was completely fine. And everybody just wants to focus on those first 4.5 minutes. Sure, he might have made a mistake or had a bad play at other points in this game, but I thought the first 4 minutes, he was terrible. After that, he was completely fine. He was 0 for 3 in the first 4 minutes. There's 3 plays where he tried to take the ball at Walker Kessler and was bothered by his length. Because Walker Kessler is one of the longest dudes in the league. But to Nurkic's credit, he was trying to take it strong to the shot blocker instead of being finesse, right, which everybody hates. But then when he takes it strong and gets blocked or struggles against that shot blocker, then it's problematic. But he was awful the first 4.5 minutes. After that, he was 1 for 3 from 3. Had 4 assists, 4 rebounds, no turnovers in this game for Nurkic, by the way, and was 3 for 3 from 2 after that stretch. Only 2 fouls, played 18 minutes. Eubanks played a bit more. Nurkic, he struggled the first 4 minutes. The final 12, he was completely fine. It's just funny because people seem to base his entire game off those 4 minutes and not what he did after that, where I thought he adjusted well. Instead of trying to take it at Walker Kessler on multiple possessions, and I thought Utah really did a good job kind of packing the paint, and they were willing to give up corner threes to guys like Shaedon Sharpe, Gary Payton II, Nasir Little. Nurkic did a good job making quick decisions and kicking the ball out to shooters. Had an assist to Sharpe, cross-court pass that was quick. Had an assist to Gary Payton II for one of his 2 threes. I thought Nurkic did a good job kind of recognizing why he struggled the first 4.5 minutes. I don't know if that was coaching getting in his ear or if that was his own realization. But then after that, it was completely fine. So I don't really understand all the Nurk criticism. Obviously, I understand it in the first 4.5 minutes, but after that, I think he was fine.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. Nurk was not good at the beginning. But to the people who say it was an effort issue or, Nurk had an attitude tonight,
there's only one play that could apply to, which is the play was complaining to the ref. Other than that? Yeah.
But, I think all 5 of our starters did that at one point and we gave up an open 3 because of that. Nurk was the last one that did it. So yeah, that was bad. But the game plan was for him to attack, get into the body of Walker Kessler and go right at him. and he did that. That's not an attitude or effort problem. He was executing the game plan. Now, he did a crappy job of finishing. So he should have, like, once you get into the body of a shot blocker, that's when you take your time and go up strong. Instead, he was like going up while attacking the body, and like he wasn't like using pump fakes well enough and all that stuff. So that's something he definitely has to get better on. But if he makes like 2 of those, like no one's saying he's like having a terrible quarter or whatever, because he would have been 2 for 4 instead of 0 for 4 or whatever.
Yeah, and on the game he would be 6 for 10 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3. He would have had 14 points in 18 minutes, 4 assists, and no turnovers. Like, that's the thing. It's just the couple of misses he had in the first freaking 4 minutes is in his entire game. It's like people are waiting for a bad stretch like that, and then nothing else matters that he does the rest of the entire game.
Yeah. And the other thing is, too, I mean, I thought it was you brought this up in a tweet, but it was kind of a dumb game plan to not get him Kessler, that is, away from the basket, and you're just like letting him be a rim protector. And I agree with what DJ Vega's saying, is that I think he kind of thought he would have his way with Walker Kessler, and he realized really quickly that Kessler's maybe a little more for real than he thought he was. But Nurk's not the type of guy who's going to take advantage of that. And then the first play, Eubanks comes in. They run a pick and roll with Eubanks, get Kessler away from the basket, and Eubanks gets a roll, and there's no one at the basket between him and there. Whereas, I mean, it's not like we posted up Eubanks and made him attack Kessler the same way we tried to do with Nurkic. So once again, it's not excuses, but Nurkic adjusted and played well after that. Defensively, I mean, he had his moments where he didn't. I mean, people were scoring over him, but
it's just funny because you got people in chat talk about his defense, talk about his defense, talk about this defense. Guess what? You can sit here and say, okay, on this possession he was bad defensively because he did this. You can say that, and we can talk. It can be a two-way street. But if you're criticizing Nurkic for only having 4 rebounds, I don't care how many rebounds somebody has, as long as they're not giving up offensive rebounds. Mm-hmm. And in this game, there was only, I'm watching it back right now, there was only 2 offensive rebounds that the Jazz had with Nurkic in the game. 2 in 18 minutes. That's really, really good. Like, that's a good, like, and only one of them was Nurkic's fault, where Walker Kessler just used his freakish length to rebound over him. Nurkic could have done a little better job boxing out. That was in the first 4 minutes. Outside of that, there wasn't a single offensive rebound that the Jazz got that was Yusuf Nurkic's fault whatsoever. So yeah, he only had 4 rebounds, but as I've said in the past, he genuinely does a good job boxing out, and if he's boxing out and other guys are collecting rebounds, that's completely fine by me, just as long as he's not at fault for giving up offensive rebounds. I don't understand criticizing a dude for rebounding when the other team didn't get rebounds when he was in the game, didn't get offensive boards. So I don't agree with that criticism. But, I mean, I will go back and look through like some of his defensive possessions. I don't think he was too bad tonight.
I mean, he got scored on like pretty much every time they attacked him. But, I mean, we were attacking Walker Kessler in the second half, and we scored almost every time we attacked him as well.
Yeah, we were playing drop for a good part. Horton Tucker hit like a contested floater on him and then hit a fadeaway mid-range on him. Like, you'll generally live with him shooting those shots.
But, I mean, once again, all the people who say he's horrible defensively or whatever, like, I never see those same people asking why the defense constantly has 4 steps with no defender in front of them before they even get inside to Nurk, and our perimeter defense never stops any penetration.
Yep. So that's why it's like, shoot, you want to talk about how he's been bad on defense? Point out specific possessions. You can go to NBA.com and the Blazers Jazz box score and look at every shot that the Jazz made. I can do that while I also talk to chat, while I also talk about the game. So I know that you can do it, chat. And Yeah, bring it to the table. I'm absolutely down for you to explain where you think he had a bad defensive possession or two.
What's not says it's because of Ant that he gets those downhill things. Okay, we don't even have Ant guarding the primary ball handler most of the time. So
yeah, most of the time we hide him. So it's if anything, it's because Jeremy Grant is always guarding pick and roll dominant guards and doesn't get through them.
We don't have our guards on the ball handlers that much. Like
Jeremy Grant's always defending the primary ball handler in the starting lineup. So yeah,
but I mean, this is. You can definitely make the case that Nurk, his lows are too low, his highs are too. I mean, no high is too high, but like he needs to find a more balanced level. But like, I mean, I don't know. Like 4 assists, no turnovers. He needs to clean that up. Like the turnover thing, he didn't have a turnover tonight. And yeah, it's like, I don't know. I don't know what you expect from him. And then, I mean, we'll get into this in a minute because it's a completely different conversation. But second half, they come out with, Nasir instead of Hart. And, I don't think Nasir necessarily did anything on offense, at least, that stood out in that run. I don't think it was a coincidence that the spacing and the lanes in the paint were more clear, and the kickouts to shooters were more wide open and things like that. So, I think, I don't know. Maybe it's just like him and Hart don't play well together or something. I don't know, because maybe it's both of them. I don't think it's anyone else in the starting lineup that's causing these slow starts or whatever, but it's once again not an excuse for Nurk. Like people think we just defend him after I think we're fairly fair with like what we say. Like he was terrible
in the first 4.5 minutes.
First shift.
There was a couple defensive possessions he had. Like there was a Rudy Gay 3 where he just pointed for somebody to guard Rudy Gay, even though he was the one guarding him, and then Rudy Gay had an open 3. With about 8 minutes left in the second quarter. Like, that was a bad defensive possession from Nurk. Nurk got confused. Still made an effort to try and get out there, but he was confused, like, because somebody else was going to pick him up. So, bad possession. But that's the thing is, the Blazers ran drop in this game, and they gave up, like, 3 or 4 buckets because they were specifically running drop scheme, and it wasn't Nurkic's fault. Like, somebody hits a floater from 13 feet against drop and Nurk contests it, it's not his fault. Because you're supposed to, the reason teams run drop is to give up mid-range shots. It's to take away the rim and take away the three-point line and make it so that the ball handler can't beat the big man to the rim, right? Because if the big man's up 20, 25 feet away from the rim, the ball handler has a much better chance of getting by him. So when you drop the big and he can play around the rim, at the very worst, idealistically, the big man's going to be able to contest whatever shot comes around the rim and is going to tempt these ball handlers to shoot this stuff from the mid-range. And it's like you got Taylor Horton Tucker hitting a contested mid-range floater and a contested fadeaway mid-range jumper, both Nurkic contesting them. That's not bad defense from Nurkic. That's the scheme. That's what it's designed to give up. There was another play where Nurkic had to drop playing baseline, and then they hit Kessler in the middle, and Nurkic did the best to contest. It was right on him. Kessler is just so long, he finishes a shot over him. Like, that's not Nurkic's fault. There's literally nothing else he can do because that's the scheme design. So I think Nurkic gets a little too much heat defensively because of some of the schemes that he plays to that then, by design, will give up certain shots that then opposing offenses will score on.
Damani, Nurk has been dropping a ton over the last 2 months.
I don't drop scheme, bro. I don't. I can get you screenshots in like 2 minutes if you really want them. But yeah.
Someone asked what's a good example of a good drop scheme? Big. Cyclone says Brook Lopez, which is an absolutely perfect example. But they also I mean, we've talked about this situation before that Milwaukee plays drop because they have Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, and other good defenders at other positions that make playing drop easier when you have guys who can get through screens, or a lengthy forward like Giannis, who's basically like a guard quickness athleticism wise, but the length of a center. So it's a case where like other teams, I don't know, if you put Nurk in that Brook Lopez role on Milwaukee, I think he's maybe not quite as good around the rim, but I think he looks a hell of a lot better on defense than he does in the Blazers scheme. And conversely, if you put Brook Lopez on the Blazers, I think he probably looks worse or just as bad as Nurk, because he's like, what the heck? Like, I have all these guys coming at me every play.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope these screenshots save correctly. I should have some screenshots, Eric, because I'm very confused. Because Damani coaches, he knows basketball. I'm just baffled as to how we weren't running drop scheme, supposedly.
He switches less than any big I've ever seen in the NBA. Like, he purposely backs off to not switch a lot of times, which leads to open shots. So, like, I don't understand. He has hedged over the past couple weeks since the Dallas 2 games. He has hedged more, and I like that, but he always hedge and recovers. He doesn't hedge and switch.
Yeah. Like, is this not drop scheme? Is that not drop scheme? Is this not drop scheme? That's drop scheme. Is this not drop scheme? Like, I'm confused. And these are just the screenshots I could get the past couple of minutes.
We can't see anything.
Oh,
you're not sharing your screen.
Dang it! Okay.
I can't even see it.
Dang it! Okay.
I was like, is my feed behind?
Yeah. Dang it. Okay. Here you go. No, I was in studio mode.
That's not drop scheme, Tori. God.
Is this not drop scheme? Eric, like, am I confused? Is this not drop scheme? Is this not drop scheme? That all looks like drop scheme to me.
Yeah. And that's Taylor Horton-Tucker and Jared Vanderbilt running a pick and roll. You should absolutely be dropping that.
Yeah. And Vanderbilt, like, tried flipping the sides of the screen, and Horton-Tucker just drove, and Simons is already beat. So, Simons has to do a little job there because there wasn't even a screen. A little better job. But yeah, that's drop scheme. Like, I don't... If that's not drop scheme, I don't know what drop scheme is. I found 3 plays in like 30 seconds. You said we weren't running drop scheme.
Yeah, you said.
And I'm streaming right now, talking with you, and I found 3 plays in 30 seconds, Damani. I'm not trying to like show you up or anything, but like I'm just confused because that's drop scheme to me. And I'm pretty sure there was a couple other buckets because of it. Because I'm literally just going back through right now as I'm streaming. I don't know.
So people are talking about a tweet that Josh Hart just had that says, let me get the exact, a lot of disrespect going on. Just remember, I'm pretty sure he's talking about Dame.
Yeah, let's not read too much into stuff that we don't know.
Also, was it earlier today or yesterday?
It was yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday, someone that Tori and I know, shout out to Luxury Tax, he had a tweet like responding to someone who was rude to Josh on one of his tweets, and Josh said, "Nah, it's not like that at all. I love Rip City. I don't let a few fans speak for all of y'all," or something like that. So
yeah, don't let a couple idiots speak for the fan base, I think was the quote.
Yeah, so like I don't think he would go from yesterday feeling that way to today 100% flipping on that 180 degrees. Like that doesn't make sense. So I'm pretty sure that was probably about Dame not getting the respect that he, or people calling him washed, like Tori was talking about at the beginning of the show, and Chris S's donation and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of people saying that Dame is, done, and we need to trade him and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it had more to do with that if I had to guess.
Yep. So anyway, like out of halftime, it looks like we were icing pick and rolls. The first bucket in the second half, the only bucket that Utah got in the first 3 minutes, the only field goal of the second half, was a play where they were icing the pick and roll. Nurkic was towards the sideline, and Simons let the ball handler get to the middle, which you're not supposed to do when you're icing. You're supposed to funnel things to the sideline. So, I defend Ant's defense a lot because I think people say he's horrible, and I think he's just inconsistent. That was a bad defensive possession from Ant because he let the ball get middle when it was very clear that they were icing it. So they weren't dropping the whole game, but they were dropping in the first half for sure. And like that play wasn't Nurkic's fault. So that's where I'm trying to figure out like where Nurkic was terrible defensively outside of maybe a couple of plays. I mean, you remember that Conley 3-point in transition?
Yeah.
Where like nobody picked up ball.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Grant just ran away from the ball. He was running right next to the ball and ran away from it. But like Nurkic was staying with Kessler running down the middle. I could see how somebody would say that's on Nurkic, but Jeremy Grant was right next to the ball and ran away from it. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see where Nurkic was terrible defensively tonight. I would love to see like more examples. That's why I ask people. Okay, if you think Nurkic was terrible defensively, what specific plays do you think he was terrible on? Because a lot of times I'll go through and look and I won't really see the same thing. So that's why I want to know. Just to see if I'm missing something or overlooking specific plays that I'm not watching back or what. Like, it's more of a curiosity thing. It's not even to argue. I just want to know what other people are seeing. So, I want to understand where they're coming from, even though I disagree with them. Anyway, let's move on from Nurkic. Tough first 4.5 minutes, but I thought was fine after that.
Yeah, well, so I'm looking up your tweet from earlier. I'm looking at this picture here. So, they were 11th in the NBA, if I'm reading this right, in 3-point percentage.
Utah?
Yeah, 36.6%. So, definitely above average, but I mean, I wouldn't say they're a team that especially certain players, you fully have to make sure. I mean, there's a few like Malik Beasley. You don't want to get Jordan Clarkson going. I thought we did a pretty good job on him in this game.
Malik Beasley already killed us this season, and I think the first time we played him.
Jared Vanderbilt, from another tweet of yours, is well, I think he missed one.
He missed
after
one.
That. So it's 6 of 9 against us, and
13 for 45 against other teams from
else?
3.
Yeah. So below 30% against everyone else. But he's a sniper against us. I still think you make him beat you from the 3-point line.
Mm-hmm.
Markkanen, I don't know what he's shooting for 3 for this season, but he's definitely
up around 42% now. He's struggling to start the year, but he's been on fire.
You definitely don't want to leave him open, but he's looking to drive a lot too. So as long as you can test that, I don't know. I don't know if drop's necessarily the worst thing to play, especially in those examples you showed where it's Vanderbilt and Taylor Horton Tucker. I'll let them shoot threes all game, and if they make them, you tip your hat to them and you say good game.
That's exactly what it is too.
Yeah.
It's like if they hit contested mid-range shots at a drop, then the scheme isn't necessarily like you're basically playing the odds on, okay, if we run this enough, yes, we're going to give up some mid-range shots. Every defense gives up buckets here or there, you know what I mean? And every defensive scheme has its weaknesses that can be exploited. And that's basically the weakness of drop scheme is guys that love mid-range shots get what they want. The thing is, if guys are really good coming off screens, they can stretch that out to 3 and use that space just like Dame did tonight, if you're that special of a player, and have range where you can set screens multiple feet above the three-point line. So that's why it really doesn't work on Dame. But every scheme has its weaknesses, and sometimes players will play the scheme correctly and nobody will do anything wrong, and you'll give up a bucket because of the weakness of the specific scheme. So like there's a few plays like that where, you know, Nurkic gets a shot hit on him, but he's contesting it about as well as he can hope, and not, you know, the thing is if he was closer, further up, that's a layup at the rim because it gets blown by. You know, if he's like stepping up late to try and contest it harder, you know what I mean? That's the thing is every scheme has its weakness. Even Gobert in drop scheme at times will get cooked. Dame cooked him in the past, so.
Zach says if it means he's a sniper when Blazer jerseys are on the court for Vanderbilt, which means he'd be a sniper all the time if we traded for him.
No, you know he'd be like Justice Winslow if he came here.
Man. As, you know, he hits those threes and then it's like, okay. And then the third one was so bad. And then you watch him shoot free throws and you're like, dude, how does this guy ever hit a three? Or like, why do they trust him to even shoot those threes? Like, it's so bad. I don't know.
Yeah. And then, I mean, like, they brought up during the broadcast, why isn't Corey Jez asked Lamar Hurd why Vanderbilt wasn't guarding Dame more? And what would your answer to that question be?
Well, I saw Dame or him switch on to Dame several times, and Dame just went right by him. And then they had no, because it was mostly because Vanderbilt played most of his minutes without Walker Kessler in the game, so then they had zero rim protection, and it's like the complete opposite of what their whole defensive concept is. So when Walker Kessler's not in the game and Vanderbilt's up top pressuring the ball handler, that's why Dame had so many easy baskets or got to the rim so often, especially after Kessler subbed out in that third quarter because like the paint was completely open, and you know, Clarkson and Talen Horton-Tucker and those kind of guys, Rudy Gay, aren't going to stop Dame from getting to the hoop.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because isn't the whole idea of Jared Vanderbilt about him being a center that can switch out and guard 5 positions? Because that's what I've heard people claim him to be is, oh, well, he's that, you know, small ball setter that has enough length and athleticism to protect the rim, but then he can switch out onto guards and lock them up and defend multiple positions, and he's switchable and this and that. I mean, he didn't really make a difference tonight. And Kessler is good, has been a good NBA defender this year. But Utah in general, you know, you can't just blame the rim protector, as we've explained with Nurkic and whatever, but they've been a bad defense this year. They're much better offensively than defensively. I'm saying this because Vanderbilt's like a favorite trade target of Blazers fans and maybe even the Blazers front office. I don't know. But Vanderbilt, I don't know. I feel like he's a little bit overrated. And he did some nice things tonight, but that three-point shooting is only against us for whatever reason. Everything else, he's just not that skilled. I don't really get the enamor of him. And I was higher on him earlier in the season, but started to look at him differently. Some of it is some of the stuff I've read from people that cover the Jazz, and then like tonight's game, I mean, he didn't make a difference when he got switched out onto Dame.
Yeah, well, I mean, I brought this up before, but playoffs last year and regular season this year for Utah, they actually have a better defense without him on the floor by a wide margin, and that's not necessarily like an individual stat or anything, but like I think he would be a good addition to any team, you know. But I'm not giving up like a first round pick or whatever that it's going to take to get him. So I think he's the type of person who we'd be having the same conversation about how he's such a negative on offense. Can we even play him on defense? And so, yeah, I mean, I'd love to have him over, say, Winslow as, the backup 4 or something right now.
Like if you could get him for free, sure.
Right, yeah. But like I'm not giving up anything outside of, some of our into the bench guys or seconds or whatever to get him. So if they do end up on protecting a first or something to get him, I think that's where I'll be a little bit upset on that.
Yep. I wouldn't give up assets for him. He doesn't move the needle as James Yang says.
Mm-hmm. And like a lot of people that I've talked to about Vando who actually think he's good. I'm not saying he's not good. That was kind of worded funny, but one of the main things is like he'd be a good small ball 5 for us. But like you watch that game tonight, and if his best thing is perimeter defense, and Corey Dez is telling him or finding it weird that he's not on the perimeter more, but he's also not protecting the rim much either. Like, can you really trust him to be a small ball 5 that much? So, like I said, if we can get him for less than a first and not having to change the protection of the Chicago pick, absolutely. If it's anything more than that, I'm hesitant to do so.
Yeah, I'm worried about it.
The trade deadline.
Yep.
Yep. Because I know Dame wants him. So yeah.
Eric, earlier in the stream, we asked for Jordan Baker with the GG Hippopotamus, and guess who came through with the $5 dono?
Yes,
it's Jordan.
What's
it's
up,
Jordan
man?
Baker
Where
with
you
the
been?
GG Hippo. I'm glad he pulled it out at least for Dame's 60-point performance. If Dame can really put out that performance and drop 60 points, then I was going to say Jordan Baker can come through and drop a GG Hippopotamus, you would think. So appreciate it, Jordan, as always. And then shout out to Hailblazers member for 11 months says, I still got the fever.
The Nurk fever?
Nurk fever. Well, I think unfortunately the rest of our fan base has been cured of that. I'm glad you still have it, but a lot of people have the opposite. Instead of having Nurk fever, they're sick of Nurk. And I don't agree. I don't know. I think he gets a bad rap. Like, to Damani's credit, he brought up a play, and you criticized this play live after it happened. And if you brought up this play earlier, I would have said, yeah, that was a bad play. There was a play where he got backdoor cut, and it was a lob. It was a wide open lob to Kessler, and he basically fell asleep in the third quarter.
I mean, that wasn't any sort of coverage thing. He just...
Yeah, that was bad.
He went to the free throw line, stopped. Walker Kessler kept going. Nurk didn't see him, and he got a wide open dunk because Nurk wasn't paying attention to where he was. I think, when you're, you can't do that. Like, you can't lose your guy on a fast
That was a
break.
horrible defensive possession, but that doesn't make for an entire horrible defensive game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he was definitely ball watching. I mean, can't really blame him for ball watching when every time he does, like, someone has the ball and they dribble down the middle, they get right by their guy. Definitely, dude. Yeah, you can't make that mistake. That was.
But that's
bad.
the whole thing, though, is like he'll make a mistake each game that like looks terrible, whereas other guys will make mistakes that result in the same thing but don't look as bad. And like Nurkic's mistakes look terrible, or the shots he might miss around the rim look terrible, even when he's finishing well, he'll have a missed shot here or there that just looks terrible, and then I feel like people make too much out of it, and like it dominates their thinking of his entire game.
Damani, I'm not saying they dribbled down the middle. I'm saying he's so used to when someone has the ball up top and they're dribbling that they're just going to blow by their guy, that's what he was waiting for. and then he completely lost sight of his guy. I'm agreeing with you. It was a horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's constantly looking to help
Well,
because we give up the most shots at the rim in the league because we give up so many dribble drives.
Also, once again, I'm gonna be called out for defending Nurkic, but right after that play, he went out of the game and didn't return with a calf strain too. Like once again, he lost his guy. There's no excuse for that. But someone said he was tired, but it wasn't because he was tired. I think he was that calf strain. He's been showing up on the injury report, not in the last few games, but a week or two ago he was on there with that calf strain a little bit. So hopefully that was just a precautionary thing because we didn't really need him. Mm-hmm. But that was a bad play. But that wasn't a scheme thing or because he blitzed a pick or anything like that, like you were trying to say earlier. That was just him losing his guy, which is bad whenever anyone does that. But I don't know if there's an analytic for this, but I guarantee he is one of the least examples of that happening on this entire team, of someone just falling asleep, and it stands out so much when it's a big man doing that. But he definitely messed up that play.
Yeah, and it sucked too because he had 3 real nice finishes in that quarter, in the third quarter, in like 3 or 4 minutes. He had that left-hand hook. He had that nice up and under reverse lay-in. And then he had just a play where he was patient, and it was an and one. He drew the foul on Kessler. Kind of went into his body and then faded away a little bit. That's the thing. In terms of, like, people want big men to just be aggressive and take the ball strong all the time. When he tried to do that in the first quarter, it got blocked. That final bucket he had, that and one, he created contact, and then he faded on it, and he was able to get it off and finish. Like, sometimes you want finesse. You don't always just want to try and go strong against the dude that's 7 feet tall with like a 7'8" wingspan or whatever he has. So, there's a time for finesse, even if you're a big dude like Nurk. Yeah. So, anyway, let's move on. We've talked a lot about Nurk. I'm done, kind of talk about the Nurk narratives and stuff. I'm ready to talk about Nas, I guess. You want to talk about Nas?
Yeah, definitely. So there's 2 quotes post-game from Nasir Little. And while I'm mentioning these, do you mind bringing up my play for Brent's breakdown? So Nasir Little, one of his quotes from tonight, he said, "Whether I'm playing 10 minutes or 30 minutes, you're going to get the same Nasir. If I'm starting or coming off the bench, it will be the same me." Tremendous attitude. I love that. Like, who cares if you're starting or playing or whatever? Just come in and do your job. And the more you do that, the more these opportunities are going to come. So great attitude. And then DJ Vega was saying earlier that he actually told Roy Rogers, "No, don't run that defense. Run this defense." And we went on a big run in the second half playing zone because Nasir Little said, "Put Jeremy Grant and myself at the top of the zone and let us run that for a bit." And we got several stops in a row right after he said that, apparently.
Yeah.
Love that.
Love his attitude.
Okay. And this is an example of that. So this is right after that, man, or right after he made that comment. So this is a defensive possession. Just focus on Nasir on every play. Okay, watch this. So he's at the top of the zone, right? They have 2 guys on one side. So Nas is trying to figure out, do I guard Beasley? Do I guard Clarkson? So go to the next slide. We see no slide. Communicating with Dame. I'm going to bring it up on my phone so I don't have to wait for you.
Look at Skype because I'm.
Oh, you're on Skype. Okay, yeah, cool.
I'm streaming my OOB or
All right.
Streamlabs.
So notice the communication between Dame and Nas here. So Dame tells Nas that he has Clarkson. So then Nas knows that he doesn't have to worry about him, and he can kind of go back to Beasley. But then in the third slide, Nas recognizes that Beasley is going to overload the other side, and they're going to attack Grant, and that that he's going to, if Grant comes out on the ball handler here, they're just going to pass to Beasley and have one of those advantages that ruins our zone just by overloading one side that teams have been killing our zone with. I've brought this up in Brandt's breakdown several times this season. So Nas communicates to Jeremy to take Beasley as he goes through, and he's got ball. So great communication by Nas. This is all Nas so far on this possession, right? And then so he gets isolated on top in the next slide, and he's going to get screened from Walker Kessler. So look where he is right now. He ends up going, he could probably go over this pick, but he ends up going under. But he doesn't give up. He doesn't get fully screened. In the next slide, you can see him going under the screen. And then, so Conley looks like he has an open shot, right? Go to the next slide, the last one. Nas gets quickly to him to at least contest the shot, has a hand in his face. Conley misses the three, and we don't give up an open shot simply because Nas communicated, understood that what Beasley going through to the other side meant that him and Jeremy should switch. He communicated that to Jeremy, and they end up getting a stop. Like this, it seems like it's so simple, but like this is like exactly what the Blazers don't do, that their defense sucks a lot of the times. They don't communicate that well enough to stop this possession. And instead, you have one player from the top of the zone who basically dictates and directs traffic, and we get a stop. Like, this is what we've been missing if we can get this Nas on a regular basis.
Yeah. I mean, this is what the Blazers need Nas to truly become, is that sort of defensive player, a guy that can have that sort of impact. He's been knocking down threes today from the three-point line, was 2 for 4, including a crazy buzzer beater to end the second quarter that was barely off in time. Huge three from him, like leaning away from the defender and everything. And he's just picked his spots well offensively. Defensively, has potential to be a true difference maker. So, a lot of people are having the debate of him versus Hart. I still like Josh Hart a lot. I think you can start either of them at this point. And with how slow the Blazers have gotten starting games, maybe you try out Nas. And with Josh Hart going out of the game with a hamstring injury, I wouldn't necessarily, hate it as much as I normally would if he misses a game or two just to get healthy, because it would give you a chance to see Nas and just kind of compare at the starts of games and the starting lineup compared to, previous games where we've started slow almost every game. But also, you need both these guys right now because you just need the depth. And this team is better off the bench with Nas in GP2 now, and GP2 doesn't even play much, only 12 minutes. He's on a minutes restriction right now. He's been banged up, so we'll see if that ever gets lifted. But overall, Hart I would like off the bench. If Nas starts. Nas I like off the bench right now, so regardless, it's nice to have Nas back just to give you options and give you another key rotation player.
Yeah, and I mean, if they make that move, if Josh doesn't miss a game, I think he's going to unfairly be like, people are going to say that he is the reason the starters suck or whatever, which is a bit unfair, but
yeah, because it's not just Josh. There's numerous reasons why they have slow starts that's outside of the small forward position.
Yeah, but I mean, they're not going to bench Jeremy. They're not going to bench Ant or Dame. So it's harder Nurk. I mean, I guess you could do both, but I don't.
Benching Nurk does nothing.
For as well as Eubanks plays, I still feel like that's better with his energy in a second unit versus him at the beginning of games. Like it's possible.
Yeah,
I
still don't trust Eubanks to play well consistently against starters on heavy minutes.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you get the Eubanks from the last 3 games, I still think you need that, you need some sort of spark plug in like, he comes off the bench and immediately it looks nice, right? Whereas, like, Nurkic, like, going from him to Nurkic I don't know. But at the same time, a lot of Eubanks minutes are against, bench centers and stuff like that too. So, I mean, maybe Nurk could feast off that. But the thing is, Hart with the bench unit, it just makes more sense to me. But I don't know. Nas isn't a proven shooter yet, but I've noticed he's getting respected as one. They didn't, like, when he started in the third quarter, like I said, Nas didn't really contribute offensively much to it, but they weren't, like, leaving him open like they had been with Josh Hart recently. And it was causing space for Dame to drive. It was causing space for Jeremy Grant to get to the basket, and one of the reasons why he was open on those dump-off passes to get dunks. And they were pushing the tempo a little bit. He was playing well defensively, so it wasn't like a wash there. So I don't know. I kind of like to try it for a little bit just to see if it can work, and maybe get some of those other players going. Because, I mean, then you might have to worry about spacing in the second unit. But, I mean, Nas playing 30 minutes. Is that how many minutes he played tonight?
32.
32 minutes. I mean, we're worried about that, right? Like, he gets his minutes restriction lifted last game, and he still only plays 15 minutes or whatever. But just to see him out, he played almost the whole second half. Like, he was out there for most of the third quarter, I think. And, he had to, without looking, have like the highest plus minus on our team, if I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really liked the way it flowed. It just seemed right. And Nas, like, Hart's cuts aren't really leading to much with that starting unit either, in the half court. And I think Nas is a little, I don't know, he's just a little bit more noticeable on his cuts and the spacing he provides right now. So hopefully that's a good sign. I'm not saying it will happen all the time or it's a definitive thing, but it definitely stood out tonight for me.
Yeah. And, I mean, he's shooting the ball abnormally well from three since returning. He just always has these insane stretches of three-point shooting followed up by just a month where he struggles. I still... like, this could be one of those hot stretches. I don't know what he's going to be from the three-point line next month in February. So that's the thing. If you start him, you start him because right now he's a better shooter. But we've seen it in the past where he has a month where he shoots like 43%, which is what he's shooting from the three-point line right now. And then the following month, he's like 26%. Yeah. So this shooting, obviously, the benchmark is lower than 43% because that's an insane percentage. But he just needs to remain consistent here. That is the key for him, and he'll be a legitimate floor spacer. Because on the scouting report, it's a solid, it's 43%. On the scouting report, so defense is probably going to respect that. I don't know if he's turned a corner or not. I have to see this type of shooting or a high enough level of shooting for like another month before I can be confident in it being consistent, because we've seen stretches like this.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can grab this real quick, but look at his feet on the shot. He had his first three, he hit nothing but the left backboard, and his feet were not set. They were flailing, and he wasn't going up strong. And then his other three were in rhythm, just nice, compact, squared shot. And I think as long as he limits the amount of times he gets that crazy three, I mean, obviously when you're shooting at a buzzer, you're not going to be completely squared all the time. So that one might look a little crazy too. But I will say I fully trust him to attack closeouts, though. And so if he does, even if it's like 38% from three, 37% from three, I think he's showing an ability to put the ball on the floor and get to the rim as well. And if he can pass out of that too, I know you're talking about that pass that was late to Ant, and Ant had to shoot at the buzzer when he
and
was
he made
open.
it, of course. Like that was the one he made.
Ant makes that one, yeah. But I think he has shown the ability to, pass a little bit off those drives too. But like if he gets that mid-range shot going, there's not many people who can block it because he gets so much space in between, kind of like Jeremy does. So I don't know. I think I'm trying not to get too excited about Nas because like every time we do, it seems like something happens. Either Stotts takes him out of the rotation or he gets hurt or something, he has some sort of muscle issue or a more serious injury. So knock on wood that it doesn't happen. But like I'm really encouraged by what we've seen these last few games, and it couldn't be more obvious that he's finally fully healthy, I think, this season. And I think that could be, I'm pretty confident they're not going to move him when, maybe they were considering that earlier in the season, but
can't move him.
Yeah, I don't think you can move him. And
his upside to us is more valuable than the value he would return being traded.
Yeah.
His upside is better than his trade market.
Yeah. And I know there's going to be some teams interested with how well he's showing right now, and how having him locked up 4 years after this one for $7 million a season. But that's the kind of player, if you have him on your team at that contract and he plays well, that's a true difference maker. You have to have guys like that who step up and take the next jump. And hopefully we're seeing the initial stages of a Nasir breakout here in his fourth year.
Yep. He just has to keep playing like this. It's just funny thinking back to the off season with Nas. It was always wait and see. Yeah, and there was a stream in like August where I was just like, I don't know, Dame was hyping up Nas, like kind of behind the scenes, and you were bringing it to the table, and I was like, everybody was mad at me because I was like, he's shown flashes of everything. I just need to wait and see if he can do it consistently for more than 3 weeks or a month. And I need to see if he can consistently stay on the court is the other thing. So that's not a negative because he has the potential. He has the ability to do so many different things, which is why you can't trade him. Mm-hmm. I just, there's always guys in this league, Eric, that like for a month can look amazing and then a month they struggle. And they have a ton of talent and they can do multiple things. They just can't find consistency. Yeah. And I just hope he's not that one. Yeah, he's still young. I'm just hoping he's not one of those guys. But that's where it was always wait and see for me. Like, I just need to wait and see if he can put it together consistently. Because if he can, then he should be the starting three ahead of Josh Hart. But that's where I'm not, like a lot of other people where I say, you have to start him right now. Because I still don't know for sure if he's able to put it together consistently for more than 3 weeks to a month.
Yeah, I think part of the brushback against your comments were because like it was coming from Dame, so it's hard not to get excited when Dame's hyping someone up, But we also heard Dame make some comments to him about how they needed him and they trust him when he came back from injury this time, and it has Nas feeling pretty confident too. But I like his attitude. It's kind of like the Jabari Walker attitude. Back in Summer League, it's just like because everyone was like, "Why is Jabari still coming off the bench? Why isn't he playing?" and all that stuff. And Jabari's like, I'm just going to play my role and do that kind of stuff. So I like that mindset from Nas. I think that'll lead to good things. And from everything I've heard, outside of the injuries slowing him down, he's one of the hardest working players on the team.
Yeah. I just hope he can stay healthy for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the thing. If you make the dude your starter and then...
That's literally the key to us maybe turning around the season is can Nas be on the court and play, half the game, 24 minutes a game or something. If you tell me he's not going to miss more than a couple games the rest of the season and average 24 minutes a game, I think that will bode pretty well for us.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is it also makes it easier to trade Hart. But when it comes to Hart, it's hard to find guys that can do all of the things and play with the edge that he does, especially one that can be in a bench role. Because on the bench, it's always nice to have a guy that is solid at a bunch of different things and can play multiple positions. They basically can fill in the gaps of the bench. And Josh Hart can be that guy, if we're smaller, like I think he can play against a lot of small ball fours and rebound like a power forward, or he can play point guard in a pinch and bring the ball up and distribute and pass and that sort of thing. So, that type of guy I like more off the bench, at least just given our starting lineup. So that's where I hope that Nas can grow into a guy that fits better in that starting lineup. Some of that will be being able to drive and make the right pass consistently and kind of play a little bit of a Josh Hart role where he can push the ball in transition and kick out to shooters or get to the rim or be able to attack closeouts, draw another defender and kick out to an open Jeremy Grant or whoever. That sort of thing is something that I'm going to be looking for from Nas between now and the trade deadline. Because if you can do that, it makes you can start Nas with confidence if you can consistently do that. And then when it comes to a bench, then it becomes a conversation of which do you value more? Somebody like Josh Hart that can do a bunch of different things, or somebody like PJ Washington, who is a 3-and-D guy that is really good defensively now and shoots like 36% from 3 on volume as a guy that can play power forward or a small ball center spot because he has a really long wingspan. Which do you value more? The thing is that it's hard to find guys that do as many things solidly as Josh Hart. So that's where I'd still be hesitant to trade him. Yes, I know he's probably going to be a free agent this offseason and you're going to have to pay him, but if Jody's okay with paying him, what he's probably going to get on top of what Grant's probably going to get, then you have to take a hard look at trying to add guys while keeping Josh Hart because that sort of player is hard to find that's that well-rounded and that brings that edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, best case scenario is the team overvalues him, I guess, in a trade. Like if we're talking about moving him and we get a similar type player and another piece like a shooter or something, so you get two of those guys that fill. One of them can kind of fill Josh's role, but the other provides that shooting spark and defense that we need. So I think if that becomes available at some point, I think you've got to consider that. If not, like I can totally see them keeping him as well.
That's where I wish we were having a better season is for the buyout market because that's obviously the easiest way to add someone.
Well, there's rumors today that Will Barton's going to be a buyout candidate. So,
would you take a chance on Will Barton?
I mean, if
we trade Hart,
the thing is, I mean, we're not going to the tax for Will Barton, so we'd have to make a trade. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm just saying hypothetically, like. He's the closest thing you would be able to find for like cheap or nothing that could do some of the same things.
Sure. Yeah, I think we can get it. I wouldn't trust Barton to like come in and fill a role, but like he definitely could be a spark plug off the bench type player.
Yeah, I mean, but like he can pass a bit. He can he's an okay-ish defender. Injuries I think have slowed him down a little bit plus age, but he's, at one point in his career he was looked at as a good on-ball defender. He's 35
last couple of years, but
so
injuries,
yeah, if you're able to get him healthier, like is he that much worse of a defender than Josh Hart is? I don't know. He's a better three-point shooter than Josh Hart is, 35% for his career, 35.5%. He's shooting 37% this year. It's really the only thing he's doing well right now. He's struggling inside the arc, which is kind of crazy because last year is 50% inside the arc in 71 games for Denver. This year in Washington, he's 38% from 2. So he's really struggling there. But he's been a guy that can rebound the ball okay and can pass, push the ball up the court, handle the ball a little bit, 6'6", at a wing spot. So if you trade Josh Hart, and Will Barton's a buyout candidate, I would definitely take a look at bringing him back, because that's the thing with a buyout candidate. You're not giving anything up for him. If you bring him in and he just doesn't work, you don't have to play him. He's already sat on the bench at one point in time for Portland, so you could do that again.
Just don't guarantee him minutes or something.
Yeah. But that's the thing is, there probably will be a team that's desperate enough to guarantee him minutes.
Mm.
But like, if you,
I don't
you
know,
know,
he's been so bad though. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. But also, Washington's kind of dysfunctional. Like, he was fine last year in Denver.
Mm.
I mean, he shot 50% from 2, 36.5% from 3 last year in Denver. Averaged almost 15 points per game. Like, he averaged almost 15 points per game.
How many games did he play though?
71.
Oh, okay.
Almost 15 points per
Was
game.
it the year
almost 4
before?
assists per game. That was 2021 to 2022. He averaged 15 and 4.
The people bringing up Rashawn Holmes is another buyout candidate. I know there was that rumor today, but he still has another year and then a player option 2 years from now. I find it hard to believe that the Kings would just eat all that money off his contract.
Yeah. So, but like, those are the type of guys, you know, that's the thing is, I say if the Blazers trade Hart, because Barton could maybe fill that Swiss Army knife role. If you keep Josh Hart, I wouldn't really look to bring in Will Barton, because you don't really need to fill that specific role. Because on top of that, I think you want a guy that is kind of like, you know, your Josh Hart can do it all, but then the rest of the bench needs to be guys that are really good at a specific thing. GP2 is like your really good defensive player, on-ball defender, whatnot. You need a guy that's a really good three-point shooter. And then it would be nice to have another guy that can create shots for himself off the dribble and pass a little bit. Or, you know, a rim protector or something. I think the Blazers' problem is they have too many guys that aren't specifically, like, really good at a specific skill. Like, so that's the thing, is a lot of good teams have role players that are like a three-point shooter that comes in and he's going to space the floor, knock down threes, and run off screens. Or somebody that can come in and put it, like, score the ball off the dribble, create shots. They got guys that play roles really well. So, but you do, I feel like you do want a guy that can tie that all together by being solid in a bunch of areas.
Yeah. I think the most important role we need is shooting.
Yeah. So, like, if you could add Cam Johnson to this lineup, to this bench, with GP2 as your defensive piece, and then you got Josh Hart as your Swiss Army knife, and then you got Cam Johnson as your three-point shooter. And then if you want to, you know, it would be impossible, but PJ Washington on top of that is like a switchable big that can shoot as well. Like, that would be the ideal bench construction. We're not going to be able to get both Cam Johnson and PJ Washington and keep Josh Hart, obviously, but you know, that's the thing is PJ Washington, Cam Johnson, they're good at specific things. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Cam Johnson has gone from being an afterthought for Phoenix to like their best player with Booker still out, and then it
just means he's gonna get paid more. Do they want to?
And their new owner is now saying they're trying to streamline it so he takes over right before the trade deadline in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And he has, I mean, I don't know if he's just saying this or not to pump his value up, but between how well he's played since he came back, and the new owner saying he's willing to pay as much as it takes.
Has he really played that well, though? He's played 3 games, and one game he was 3 for 9 with 8 points.
I mean, that was one of the games, I guess, but the other 2 games, like, he's been instrumental in them winning without Booker. So, anyways, I think either it's going to cost way too much to get him now, or they're going to try to keep him. So, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. So what's next?
I don't know. Should we go around the NBA? We haven't done that much lately.
Yeah.
Check the standings.
If I had updated scores, but I can take a screenshot. I still need to figure out, because on Blazers Press Live the scoreboard's updated. On this, the scoreboard's a day behind. I just don't understand why that's the case, because it makes zero sense. I was trying to fix it earlier, but we can bring up the standings. I just have to screenshot them, and I have the things to fix it. I'm just doing so much else YouTube wise right now that I haven't gotten around to it. I keep forgetting. But yeah, let me go take a screenshot. I'll do it off NBA.com.
And then just a reminder, tomorrow we will have Blazers Uprise live. Join us if you want to.
Yeah, that is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But
I was thinking it was Tuesday.
The Blazers don't play until Saturday, so no stream Friday unless there's a trade.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. And so, no streams Friday. I did drop a Believe in Blazers podcast, so, if you want some content, considering you can't go a day without me, you can watch me and Stephen Vaughn. I know it's not Eric, but Believe in Blazers podcast on the second channel, Blazers Uprise Live, and that's where our stream will be tomorrow, so subscribe to that. Anyway, we gave odds for certain guys getting traded. It was fun.
Tyler, DeAndre Hunter is out of the question because he's on a poison pill contract, and there's probably a way for the Blazers to make it work, but it's near out of the realm of possibility to even bring in someone that gets that big of a raise that counts differently for outgoing versus incoming. It's just confusing, but yeah.
All right. Here we go with the Western Conference standings via NBA.com. Eric, here, I'll make this a little bigger. We don't have to have it say West. There we go. So Portland is in 12th, right? 10.5 games back. But they're 2 games out of 5th and 2.5 games out of 4th.
Yep. 2 games out of the last column for the Pelicans, yeah.
The Pelicans, as the 4th seed, are 26 and 23. They've fallen off. They're 2-8 in their last 10. It's due to injury and stuff, but is there due to more than that? CJ's playing, right? They got CJ and Zion.
Zion's been out for
Zion's been
4
out,
weeks.
okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
Brandon Ingram just came back tonight. It was terrible.
Oh yeah, Zion was out for 4 weeks. Yeah.
It was just CJ basically. For a while. Yeah, CJ did his best to hold them up. But what's up, Iosu? Josh.
Well, that's the thing. We've dealt with injuries like that too. It's like our record is partly due to not having Dame for a while and Dame being banged up. So every team gonna have to deal with injuries at some point. It's just crazy that Sacramento's in 3rd. How much you want to bet though? They're only 5 games ahead of us. We're only 5 games out there. How much you want to bet they just have a stretch where they suck and they end up in a play-in and then somehow lose through the play-in and miss the playoffs again?
I don't know, man. They kind of remind me of Memphis last year. They just seem to have that mojo this year.
Yeah,
but I can also see what you're saying. How do you even
explain that mojo?
Just good chemistry, right pieces. Sabonis has played great. Fox has obviously been good. Keegan Murray is helping space the floor a lot. And I don't know. It's just kind of a situation where the pieces just all kind of fit. And then they got that light the beam thing, that's fun and exciting and everyone's rallying and around God. It. I know it's but you know what I mean? That kind of thing. You're probably a little too young for this, but the last time the Mariners made the playoffs prior to this last year, they had all these cool slogans and Soto Mojo and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's just sometimes it's just fun, and that leads you to play loose, and they're feeling themselves right now. It's going to be really interesting to see if they make an all-in move just to make the playoffs this season, or if they just ride it out with the players they have. it's definitely it's a good story for Kings fans because they haven't been in this position in a long time. But
you know what I would watch out for in terms of an all-in move? If Bradley Beal becomes available, I could see the Kings going hard after Bradley Beal.
Yeah, maybe.
Because they, to be that starting shooting guard, and pay that money, because a lot of teams are going to want to pay that contract necessarily if he becomes available, or like Zach LaVine becomes available, because didn't they sign him to a contract sheet in the past? It was like a long time ago, probably different front office, but those types of guys make sense for the Kings.
Yeah. I could see them being like I don't know about Gary Trent, but they could be a surprise team for OG going all in for him as like their final piece.
Yeah, but here's the problem. They want OG. The New York Knicks want OG. I bet you Miami, if they could, would trade for OG. That seems like a Miami Heat type of player, right?
But Miami doesn't.
They don't have assets.
Cavs don't have assets either.
Cavs don't have assets. But like that's the thing is like he makes sense on literally every team. Brooklyn, I guarantee you, would go after him. They do have a couple of firsts from the Harden trade.
They gave up one to get Royce O'Neal though, didn't they?
Yeah, but Indiana, I wouldn't be surprised. They supposedly, you actually said this, they want to accelerate their rebuild, and Anunoby kind of fits their timeline and would make a ton of sense there.
There was a report that the Thunder are like one of the front runners for him if he gets traded.
Even the Thunder. And they have the picks to make it happen.
Yeah,
they can trade 4 picks for him and still have like 12 other teams' future firsts. That's the problem with Anunoby.
If the Thunder decide they want him, it's pretty much game over.
Yeah, it's wraps.
Yeah. So, and DJ Vega was asking earlier because there was it was like NBA trade report, which like don't ever like think that's a legit source because they like don't have the best track record. But they said it was like the Thunder, the Blazers, and Knicks, I think, that are showing the most interest. And I think here's the deal. The Blazers, of course, are calling about OG. They still want OG. If Toronto comes down on their asking price, of course, they're going to go after him.
They won't, though.
But it's going to come down to this. Will the Blazers give up Sharpe and more assets? And the answer to that is going to ultimately be no. I don't think, short of Dame going to them and saying, I love Sharpe, I know we all agreed to go that way, but let's just tear this all down and go all in. I don't see them making a move. They're not trading Ant, and I would be floored, absolutely floored if they traded Sharpe. And I think this organization is fully aboard Dame and those 2 players winning here along with Grant or whatever. Everyone else could be in play, but I think that's ultimately what's going to happen is the Blazers will be unwilling to give up Sharpe plus additional assets. Like maybe if it was as easy as Sharpe and salary filler for OG and that was it, like you're using Sharpe as the asset to get someone like OG, you can definitely make the case that that's what they should do. But like the last asking price was Hart, Sharpe, and 2 future firsts, which means we have to unprotect a first. And that's more than they wanted at the deadline, too, or at the draft for OG, when it would have been slightly cheaper because OG's been relatively healthy. I know he got hurt recently, but he's been healthy this year and played phenomenal. So, yeah, I don't see a way that Portland's going to not only give up Sharpe, but then overpay with other assets for him. So unless Toronto comes down on that price. But like you mentioned, every team in the league is going to be interested in. And if OKC they can match or beat any offer we can if we don't include Sharpe. So I just don't think that OG trade is going to happen to Portland.
Yeah, and your better bet might be hoping that Nasir Little can be 75% of what OG is.
Mm-hmm.
Because OG is 46% from the field, 36% from 3, 52% from 2. Doesn't gets to the line 3 times a game. This is in 36 minutes per game, right? Per 36, he's 17.2 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 2 assists. 2 steals, though. He's like phenomenal defensively, right? Like,
Yeah,
I don't have any confidence in Nas being that level defensively, but 75% of the defender OG is probably the optimistic viewpoint for Nas. Like, if he can truly, figure it out. I mean, Nas this year is obviously shooting the 3-ball really well. 36% from 3. I think Nas can shoot 36% from 3, 52% from 2. I think he can do that. Nas scores this year and last year, he's scoring right around 14 points per 36. OG's like 17 points per 36. I think offensively, Nas can be pretty dang close to OG. Defensively, I think there will be a bigger gap, but Nas is 22. So in your optimistic timeline, Nas, I don't think he's ever going to be the player that OG is now, but if he can be 75% of what OG is, and you can keep Sharpe in those other assets or use those other assets elsewhere, the team might be better, and it's better set up for the future. So I think that's what the team will be betting on. And Nas is $7 million a year for the next 4 years. So
and OG's going to opt out of his contract after next year and get a huge raise.
Want a max, yeah.
Man, OKC though, if they, I mean, I'm assuming they'd overpay with first, so they didn't have to give up any of their like core guys they're believing in. So you got SGA, Dort, Giddey, Jalen Williams, Chet, and OG.
Well, Eric, here's my question.
That's
well,
crazy.
They would probably keep their own first too.
Yeah.
So I mean, if they struggle the rest of the year, don't make the play in, which is very possible. I mean, that could jump into the top 4. But here's my thing: if they're going to trade for OG, what's stopping them from also trading for Siakam?
Yeah, well,
because if they're trading, if the Raptors are trading OG, they're probably trading them for picks, right? The thing is, Toronto could come and be like, you know what? Since we are trading for OG, let's trade for Siakam and be really, really good, and be really set up for the future. Because they could trade 10 first-round picks and still keep their own.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't know if they can match both of their salary this year, so that might be an off-season thing. But because they have, I believe they have Kemba's dead money.
Yeah, they have a lot of dead money,
like 30-some million. So, and then they made some trades and waived people too. So, I think
you'd have to throw like Dort plus. You'd probably see Dort plus maybe Giddey. That's only 20 mil. Yeah, no, they couldn't actually.
Yeah. Because
they're not trading SGA. So, yeah, OG's only. So, good. You answered my question. I asked you what's stopping them, and that is what's stopping them.
Yeah. Could they, if they had, like, if they kept the guys I mentioned, do they have enough salary to get? And I didn't even mention Kendrick either, but
if
with,
they
like,
kept Giddey and Dort?
Yeah, like, if they didn't trade any of their rookies or SGA or Dort or Giddey.
Nwaba plus
Baisley
is 9.2 plus Muscala is 12.7. And
probably make it work.
They're over the tax? Is Fanspo lying to me? Go look at Spot Track, I guess. Because Fanspo says they're 800K over the tax, which seems abnormal.
No, I think they're pretty close. Because it's the first year of SGA's contract, right?
Yeah. Yeah, with the dead money, possibly. But Yeah, like you would probably see something like Nwaba plus Baisley plus Muscala plus like Jeremiah Robinson Earl, and then they could take back OG Anunoby because that would match, and then they have trade exceptions to absorb. They have a $10 million trade exception, so they could absorb like, a Hernan Gomez who's on a minimum anyway, but as part of the deal, maybe they take back Otto Porter Jr. who's out for the year, or Kem Birch, just to save Toronto some money to make it easier for the Thunder to trade for him. You know what I mean? It would probably be something like that, if I had to guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Spot or
Jang would probably be in it, though. I agree, Vega. But that's like the type of forward that Masai Ujiri has been trying to get. So would he change course and look for different types of players than just your big ball handling forwards?
Spotrac says they're a little under $8 million under the luxury tax line right now. So
yeah, so it's probably because they stretched something that Fanspo doesn't have stretched. Because Fanspo says they're over.
Yeah. Fanspo also has some. Like they, for some reason, don't take people who didn't sign off the trade page, so they might have like capitals.
Yeah, do they even have Nwaba?
I think they cut him.
They have Nwaba on there, so
yeah, it'd
actually be a lot harder because I was counting him.
He's dead money.
So it'd have to be Ousmane Dieng then, probably, because he's making $4.5 million.
Well, you got
Dieng, Baisley, Muscala, and JRE.
Baisley, Muscala, Poku, Trey Mann, Jeremiah Robinson Earl.
Yeah, I mean, they could trade any of those young players. They got a lot of them, so
yeah,
they could figure it out.
I think
so that's the thing.
Get them there. Yeah.
If the Thunder really want him, that's where he's gone.
You could also find other teams, I guess, for some of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Toronto would want Ousmane. I don't know.
That's the problem. Is like OKC could be a buyer, which nobody expected. Nobody expected them to be. What's their record right now? They lost tonight. They have the same record as us.
Yeah.
Which is sad, but
well,
like they're in the pack with all these teams. They are 2 games out of 5th. They are 2.5 games out of home court advantage, just like us. They are right there with us.
Could you imagine if they had Chet though? Man.
Yeah, they would be the 1 seed right now.
I don't know about 1 seed, but they would definitely be. You could definitely. I think if they had the Chet, if they had Chet, they'd be talking about making a legit run this year.
Absolutely, because he's a game changer defensively. Like they're. Let me see what they're ranked defensively, because I'm curious. In adjusted defensive rating. I mean, adjusted defensive rating, they're already 9th. So imagine if they had Chet.
Mm-hmm.
Because he'd help on both sides of the ball right now, I think.
Yeah.
You're probably talking about them being like a 5 or a 6 seed right now if they had him.
Yep. And then an all-in move. They just have to identify the one missing player and go for him.
How are the Thunder back already? Go away. For multiple years. Like the Kings are back and now the Thunder are back already. And Memphis has been back and we're still sitting here like, can we figure it out ever?
DJ Vega thinks the Pels missing piece is OG. It'll be very interesting to see how much more they give up for OG than they gave up for CJ.
Yeah. That's another team. Yeah.
There's talk they could give up Daniels and picks for him, which I don't know if would be the like worst thing for us, because I think they might be making a move they don't necessarily have to make.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I
mean, honestly, if Toronto didn't want Daniels back, I'll take Dyson Daniels.
Well, Toronto would definitely want it. Who wouldn't?
Well, I don't know how good of a fit he would be like as a main guy next to Scotty Barnes. I don't really know. I don't know how well both those guys would play off each other, but it would be awesome to somehow get Dyson Daniels, which it's not realistic whatsoever, but hypothetically considering it was like him or Sharp and then having both of them.
You know what's funny though? If they traded for OG, you know who might be a part of that trade that was untouchable last year?
Herb.
Is Herb,
Yeah. I mean, I would love Herb Jones too.
I mean, maybe you swoop in and get because his contract's cheap enough to where you can maybe make that work, and then
it's just like Toronto has to get something they value more than Herb Jones out of that from us. That's the problem.
But I don't know how much they would value him. It's not like he's a fan favorite like he is in New Orleans, and they're not going to trade him or whatever.
Yeah,
even though he's
he's an elite defender.
All good and AJ Poseidon say that he's having a down year, which of course, but that's why he's potentially maybe available when he wasn't
shooting the ball. He's still elite defensively. He's still young, can still handle the ball a little bit, pass a little bit. Like, it's just the 3-point shot. He's shooting shade under 30% right now. So that's the problem. Anyway, we'll be live tomorrow. Might stream a little bit longer. We'll see. Yes, Herb Jones is my guy, Eric. Anything else you want to cover on the stream?
Yeah, Eric. No. I just want to thank everyone for watching. It's fun to have a few streams where we're actually winning. I mean, once again, Damian Lillard, phenomenal performance. It's just an absolute privilege to watch him play basketball, and just so happy for him that he's having, just as good of a season as he was hoping to have. Maybe not wins wise, obviously, but just to prove that he's back and not washed. Just a great game from Dame, and hopefully he continues this hot stretch and carries us for a little bit until we get the right pieces in place here at the trade deadline and can figure some things out.
Yep, absolutely. Well said. So, tell me why I'm looking at Juwan Howard's stats on Basketball Reference. I need to stop going down this rabbit hole.
Why were you, what led you to Juwan Howard?
It was just there. I don't know. I was on Dyson Daniels stats, and then somewhere it said Juwan Howard stats, and I was like, oh yeah, Juwan Howard existed, and he played for us for a year. So then I clicked on his sheet. But yeah, this is the time of year where Dame normally gets hot. Normally has a stretch where he's on fire. Back in 2020, January of 2020, he had a stretch like this as well.
Well, January Nas too.
Yeah, hopefully January Nas can be full-time Nas instead of just January Nas. Because what about February Nas? Granted, his worst month healthy in February? Yeah. His worst month, I think, has always been December.
So we got that out of the
last
way.
year in December, in 9 games, he shot 6 for 23 from 3. Or no, that's his Friday stats from last year. He was 6 for 23.
You're confusing Friday with December? What is going on?
No, I was just looking for total numbers. Okay, that's where they are. I was thinking there was a section below. Where did I don't know. It's midnight. The brain's shutting off. He was 6 for 29 from 3 last year in December. 20.7%.
So he just decided to get hurt at the perfect time so he could avoid all that and then just be good all the time.
Because he was also 25% in November last year in 15 games. He had a stretch of 24 games in November and December where he shot 18 for 76 from 3. 18 for 76 is not good. That's less than 25% from 3. But then in January, he shot 40% from 3. This is that inconsistency I'm talking about. He didn't play after January last year because he got hurt. The year before, he shot 54% from 3 in 9 games in February. He was 12 for 22.
Nice.
But then in March,
30-point game.
Yeah. But then in March, he shot 26% from 3 in 12 games, 8 for 31. Then in April, he was 5 for 20, which is 25%. So, yeah, we'll see if it's just January Nas. in February, Nas is supposedly good too. Yeah, he's like never played in March and April, so we'll find out.
Not enough.
Yeah, we'll find
Sample
out.
size, yeah.
So, yeah, Eric, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Peaks and valleys, shooting the ball. Yeah, you can look at it on a month-to-month basis and really see the difference. But anyway, yeah, Dame, 60-point bomb. Gonna go watch those full highlights.
To be fair to Nas, he hasn't had really a consistent role. At least in the Stotts era, he didn't. Like he'd play well and then not play for a while, or he'd get hurt. So
yeah,
it's inconsistent, like in and out of the lineup too, along with him playing inconsistently.
But that's where we have to wait and see if a consistent role will help him find consistency himself.
Yeah. I believe in it. Let's go, Nas.
Well,
become him.
Become him? Your mom says he already is him. Are you disagreeing with your mother?
I'm okay. Become more him.
More him. That's better. Better. Trevin was about to get mad. Anyway, we'll talk trades tomorrow on. We'll see if there's any rumors on our second channel. Blazers Uprise Live, link in the description box below. The Believe in Blazers podcast was uploaded there earlier today. Me and Steven gave odds that certain Blazers would get traded. Eric, why don't we just throw one out there for you as we wrap this up? Odds Josh Hart gets traded this year. What would you say? What are the chances? Just a number.
58%.
Oh, wow. It's a little higher than me.
What did Steven say?
I don't even remember. I don't listen to Steven. I just listen to my own thoughts while Steven talks. No, I'm just kidding. I don't remember, though. You got to watch the podcast to find out.
Yeah, if you would have asked before Nas came back,
yeah,
I would have said probably 43%.
These numbers are so specific.
Yeah, I think it's nothing to do with Josh. I think they're fine with him. They're not like down on him or anything. I just think as Nas emerges, he might be their only way they can improve the team with guys they want to trade. So that's why I say it's a little above 50%, because I feel like they're not necessarily going into the trade deadline having to trade him or like wanting to, but I think ultimately they are going to get so many calls for him that it'll just make sense to move him for something that maybe is a bit more of a long-term answer.
Yep. And then this next one, I don't want an explanation because we talked about it, but Keon. Just a number.
I still think it's kind of low, like 40%.
Okay. And then what about Justice Winslow?
I'll also say 40%.
Okay.
Below 50, yeah.
What about... Because this is the other thing I brought up. What about either one of these two? Hart or Keon plus Winslow? I think it'll be one or the other. It'll be like both those guys, or it'll be Josh Hart.
Okay, so this is just based on them wanting to stay under the tax.
And trade for something without giving up Hart, it would have to be Keon plus Winslow.
Yeah, which means I think it's more likely they trade Hart, because that just gives them...
agree.
It opens
up
just saying, so many more possibilities to bring in players, and you get more value than you would Hart or Keon and Winslow. So I'm going to say it's like 75%.
I think that might be exactly what I said.
75% Hart, 25%.
Oh, I was saying like
like one or the other happens. I think I said like 75% that they'll either trade Hart or they'll trade both Keon and Winslow.
Okay, yeah. I think it's heavily weighted towards the Hart.
Oh, for sure. I just think in totality, like it's likely that one of those things happens. Is either Hart going out or it's Keon plus Winslow.
Yeah. The only way I see Winslow really being traded is if they are making a move and it's someone that makes a little more than like Keon or something. So they have to trade Winslow to a team that has the ability to take him just to stay under the tax because they don't want to be in the tax. But yeah,
there's just not many players in that range.
Right. I don't think there's many scenarios where they get to the package they need to get to by trading those two that they wouldn't find it much easier dealing Hart and getting multiple pieces.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, we'll have Blazers Uprise live tomorrow. Picks against the spread, all that fun stuff. Any other plugs? Any other things?
No, go check out. If you want to know more about Toronto Raptors, go check out Tori's video with Samson Folk over on NBA Uprise.
Yep, and then I have one with I talked to Gabe about the Phoenix Suns. I'm gonna have some other ones without interviews that'll be a little easier to do coming up. Just been building the graphics for those, so that'll be used on the trade deadline stream coming up in 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks February from tomorrow.
So I'm ready for it. So anyway, yeah, check out the NBA channel. Trying to get that off the ground. Your support would be greatly appreciated. Leave a like on those videos and leave a like on this stream because it helps out the channels. Anyway, we're out of here. Blazers win 2 in a row. 2 games left on the homestand. 2 games below 500. They have a chance to get back. And back into the mix of things. Only 2.5 games out of home court advantage. Despite the travesty that's been the past 30 games or so, the season is not yet a travesty. Hopefully it won't become one. We will see. If Dame keeps playing like this, we can have some optimism. Anyway, we're out of here. Catch you tomorrow on Blazers Uprise Live. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.